Back on the road, back on the road, and back on the road, back on the road. City Cycle.
Hi folks, so thank you for stopping by. If you would like to learn how to build a camper van like this yourself, then please check out my other YouTube videos. So if you guys have found these videos helpful, you can help me out in a big way by picking up a copy of my first ever album that my brother and I recorded in Nashville late last year. Any proceeds will go to future recording projects, as well as taking the band on tour and hopefully promoting it. I'll leave a link in the description and talk a little bit more about it at the end of this video. So next up then folks, we're going to make our curtains, and to start off with we need to put some sort of bracket or curtain wire into place to hold our curtains there. Now I purchased this on eBay. This is called caravan curtain wire. I'm using this because it will sit nice and tight into the door itself, so that when I open the sliding door there's plenty of room for it to fit through. Now if you have more room between the sliding door and your van itself when you open this door, then you can go ahead and make some nice wooden brackets if you want to, or alternatively you can use this option. What I'm going to do then is firstly measure this to size. So normally in household curtains you would allow 4 inches from the top of your window to the top of where your bracket or curtain wire is going to be, and that's just to make sure that the sun is going to be blocked out and you've got plenty of privacy. Here we don't have 4 inches to play with though, unfortunately, so I'm actually going to make mine 2 inches, as this is going to sit pretty flush anyway. That's going to stop that sunlight and everything coming through, so I'm going to measure 2 inches there, 2 inches again this side. For the sides, don't forget the curtains are going to bunch up when they're pulled to the side. I'm going to allow 3 inches this side and the same on the other side. And then for the bottom I'm literally just going to allow 1 inch. Normally at home you would allow about 2 inches. And then what we want to do is then find that corner point, and that's going to tell us where we're going to put these little hooks that I've bought. So I've taken 3 inches that's coming out from the side of the window and that 1 inch that's coming out from the bottom, and I've managed to find the corner point here, and that's where we're going to screw in these little hooks. So our wire is going to have a little eyelet in at the end that you'll simply screw in to the end, and then that eyelet will then hook onto this little hook here, which is going to be in place down there somewhere, and same at the top, so we'll have 4, 1 in each corner. Go ahead then and just find all your corner points, and then we can go ahead and put these hooks in. Next up then we want to go to the little mark that we've made. Drill a little bit of a pilot hole, and then we want to feed our little hook through, and it's simply a case of just screwing it in. Okay, so we want to go around all 4 corners and add those. So next up then we want to add our wire across here, so I'm going to take a measurement from one hook to the other. This is 60 centimeters in my case, and I'm going to take 2 centimeters off each side, so that's a total of 4 centimeters to give me 56 centimeters. The reason being is that these eyelets themselves are also going to add a little bit of length to the wire, and we want our wire to stretch a little bit. We don't want it to slack, otherwise the curtain is going to slack and the whole thing's going to droop a little bit. So we actually want to pull it and stretch it a little bit to get it into place. So go ahead and cut yours to size. So I'm simply going to take my tape measure here, measure out the length, and I'm going to cut it to size using a pair of pliers here. If you've got something that's got a pretty heavy duty cutter on it, that'll be good for the job. There we are. And you can simply take the little eyelets and they will just screw into place. So put those in on each side and you can put it on. Okay, we can just simply hook this on now, and as I said before, we might need to stretch this one a little. There we go. Hopefully that'll help keep it fairly taut with the weight of the curtain. If you do find later, once you've added the curtain, that it is a little slack, you can go ahead, unscrew these and just cut a little bit more off until it is nice and tight. So for my camper van I'm actually going to be making 2 curtains. You could by all means just make one that would slide across like so, but I'm going to have 2 that are going to draw together in the middle here of our window. So what I need to do is I need to take some measurements. I need to know the length across here as well as the height. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some tabs to the curtain. So the tabs are basically going to loop around this top wire here. I'm doing it this way because I tend to find that they will open quite easily that way because I've got quite thick material. Having tabs mean it doesn't bunch up and make it difficult to open and shut. So first out I'm going to work out the width from there to there. On this particular camper van that I'm working on, it is 24 inches or 60 centimetres in width. Now I'm going to be making 2 curtains like I said before, so I'm going to halve that so I can work out the width of each individual curtain, which means it'll be 30 centimetres or 12 inches wide. Now I'm actually going to be making these so that the curtain will lie completely flat once you close the curtains. This is because my material is really thick and it will bunch up as I try to open them like so. But if you've got thinner material, you could by all means add a few more inches to that so you actually don't get a completely flat curtain hanging here. It will have a few more sort of ripples in it, like most household curtains will. So on top of working out that each curtain needs to be 12 inches wide, I need to also allow a 1 inch seam allowance. So the seam allowance is where I'm going to be sewing up the sides, and that's going to take up some of the width. It will take up a ½ inch on either side, so 2 lots of ½ inches will give me 1 inch. So take whatever measurement it is and just add 1 more inch as your seam allowance. Now for the actual height, it gets a little bit tricky. So my height on here is 14.5 inches. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add again another inch for our seam allowance, the same as we did for our width. And we're also going to add 3 inches to the very bottom. So I'm going to have 3 inches of the curtain hanging down here. That's just to provide some weight. I'm going to be pushing the curtain behind here. That extra bit of curtain and weight is just going to prevent the curtain from sort of slopping out over the wire here. Take your height, add 1 inch for the seam allowance, and then allow an overhang. I'm allowing 3 inches, you can by all means add more. So like I said, I'm going to be adding some tabs. I'm going to add 3 tabs to each curtain, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let those tabs hang down for about 1 inch. So I'll be folding these over so there'll be 1 inch this side, and because it's a loop there'll be 1 inch on the other side as well. And again we need to allow another ½ inch seam allowance on both sides, which adds another inch to our total, giving us 3 inches. So that's 1 inch hanging here, 1 inch hanging on the other side, and also ½ inch on both sides that's going to hang into the curtain for us to sew over and join it to the actual curtain itself. So for my curtains, I'm using some of this burnt orange material. You can use whatever you like. I'm going to also have some of this thermal blackout lining. So thermal meaning that it will help retain some of the warmth in the winter and also keep the heat out in the summer. And the blackout lining also means that that sunlight isn't going to pierce through our curtain material here in the mornings when we wake up. So we're going to be sewing these two together. But I'm going to draw my dimensions first of all onto this curtain material and then onto the thermal lining, and then it's just simply a case of cutting it out. So just draw out the height and the width that you just figured out, making sure that you allow for those seam allowances. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 of those, and then obviously I'm going to add it to my thermal lining and then we can cut it out. You may also find it useful to use an iron just to iron out and flatten your material here. As you can tell, I'm not a fan of using an iron, hence why I look like a bag of shit every day. Great, so now that I've got all my measurements marked out, I can go ahead using some proper fabric scissors. I can go and cut our material out. So as you can see, I'm using some proper fabric scissors for this. This will just help stop the edges unravelling from our material. You could also use a rotary cutter as well if you have one. Great, so just go ahead and cut all your material out now. So once you've cut your curtain pieces out, we can go ahead and baste them together. I'm going to be putting this basting tape along here. This is a 1/4 inch basting tape. You can use pins as well. This is just going to hold the two pieces of material together nicely whilst we're running it through the sewing machine. Now what you need to do is you want your curtain material to be face up at the moment. So as you can see, I've got two sides. This is the side that I want facing out, looking at us when we're inside the curtain. Basically we're going to put our thermal lining on top of it like this, and once it's basted together we're actually going to sew down this side and this side here. So effectively it's going to be inside out once it's been sewn, and then we're going to put our arm inside and we're going to pull it inside out so that the right side is then facing out, if that makes sense. And what that will do is that will hide the sewing that we've just done, so you won't actually see the thread. That's the reason we're doing this. Great, so once you've cut out your curtain material, go ahead and cut your tabs. So I'm going to have 6, 3 on each side. So now that we have all our tabs cut out, I'm going to go ahead and apply some basting tape onto each of these sides. You can use pins if you don't want to use basting tape. This is 1/4 inch basting tape. It's basically like double-sided tape. So I've stuck one side down, and then you can peel off the other edge to reveal another sticky side. As you can see, I'm working on the curtain material face up. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to fold this like so. The basting tape is going to hold it in place. Push that down. We're going to sew along here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And once that's sewn together, what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull this inside out. So then this side will be showing and you won't see the stitching. Go ahead now and just apply basting tape to all of those and follow the same procedure. So I've got all 6 of my tabs here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little magnet here as a guide, and I'm going to set it up to be a 1/2 inch away from the needle itself. So a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we'll run it along this side here. What I'm going to do is just feed that through there. Put the foot down. Remember to sew forwards about 4 stitches and then backwards on yourself, and then come forward just to make sure that that stitching doesn't come undone. And then reverse it. And there we have it. So you can just pull that up now. Cut those off. Okay, cut off any of that excess that might be left remaining. So you should end up with something like that, and what we can do now is we can go ahead and fold it inside out, which is probably going to be easier said than done. So you might want to just give me a mo whilst I wrestle this out. It's obviously easier if you've got bigger tabs. But this is the tiniest camper van in the world, so and there we have it. That's what our tab looks like. So in the end what we're going to be doing is we're going to be folding this in half, like so, and it will be sewn across the bottom here, and so our wire will fit through there. Obviously you can go ahead and make some bigger tabs than this. It will make it a lot easier to fold inside out, but because I'm making such small curtains, that's why I've made this one so small. But go ahead now anyway and sew all of your tabs up, and then you're ready to roll onto the curtains. There's all my parts. This is just for one of the 2 curtains. Next up I'm going to add some of the basting tape around each side. Again, this is 1/4 inch basting tape. You can use pins if you want to. I'm going to apply some down here and eventually across here as well, where my tabs are also going to sit. So I'm going to do these 2 sides. So I've got one on either side, remembering to keep our curtain material face up. So I've added one across the top as well, and I started removing the other side of the sticky tape. As you can see, I've added a little bit of basting tape to each of our 3 tabs here. I'm going to remove the other side and then I'm going to simply fold them over like that. So that we have our tabs folded over, we're now going to place them up against the top of the curtain material here, and I'm going to make sure that they're at least ½ an inch in from the side, because that is our seam allowance, otherwise they're going to get sewed in too early. So mine's just ½ and a little bit there. I'm just going to place it at the very top and just press it down onto that basting tape. I'm going to put the other one over that side, and we're also going to have one in the middle. So now that we've got our 3 tabs in place and all the basting tape is all around these 3 edges here, remembering to leave this one clear because we're going to pull it inside out from there, we can then go ahead and pop our thermal lining over the top. So there we have it with our thermal lining over the top, and you can see the tabs there. We can go and take this to the sewing machine now and get ready to do our ½ inch seam. So I've set up our little magnetic guide here to be a ½ inch away from the needle. And I'm simply going to run this through now, so I'm going to start on this side, and as always I'm going to go forward and then back on myself. And then all the way down. And then when you get to the end, just reverse up 4 or 5 stitches, and then there till the end. And you can lift this up, cut away this thread. You can go ahead and do the other side. Oh no, the thread's run out. Oh, it ran out ages ago. I'm just going to move that into 10mm, our magnetic guide there. I'm going to pop the top end through where our tabs are now. I'm going to run across there. You're going to want a pretty heavy duty needle on here, because it's going to be going through a lot of material. And away you go, same as before. Back a few times, and then forward again. There we go, now we can just cut the ends off. Now just go around all the corners where you finish your stitching and just take away any of this excess. You just want to go ahead now and put your hand through the open end and turn your curtain inside out. Tabs are now sticking out. There, and hopefully you can see the finished curtain. All we've got to do now is take care of this open end at the bottom. And you could either fold it up like this and sew it, or you can do what I'm about to do, which is actually fold these sides in on themselves, and then you can sew in there to give it a bit of a cleaner finish. I've just put some basting tape onto the curtain material, and then I can simply just fold it over, and I can do the same on this side, so both ends are folded in on themselves. Great, so hopefully you can see both ends have now been folded over. I'm going to add some basting tape across the 2 here just to stick them both together. There we go, so hopefully you can see we've ended up with something like that, and now we can go and take that to the machine. And now we can just simply sew across this. And again, I'm just using the 10mm seam allowance that's on here. And again, just cut off these end pieces of the thread. So then, there we have it. Curtains! Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Please like and subscribe and check out our other content on all things camper. As I mentioned before, I've just recorded my first album. We'll need all the help I can get. So I'll leave you with an album preview for now, and a link in the description if you'd like to pick up a copy.
She does all that she can. Fears anymore. I'm heading west, yeah, till I cross that line. $6 short, but my soul is clean. I need one more dime. The fruit machine swirling waves on me. Yeah. You put their cold and hard